Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Accessibility Byte. Today, we're diving into fonts, language, date-time formatting, and more. Making digital content accessible is a key part of inclusive communication. Whether you're creating documents, presentations, emails, or Canvas content, small choices like font selection, spacing, and date formatting can make a big impact. In this short video, we'll cover essential accessibility best practices that ensure your content is readable and inclusive for all users, including those with visual impairments, cognitive disabilities, and screen reader users. By the end of this session, you'll know the recommended types of fonts and font sizes to use when creating content, the importance of line spacing, how to format dates and times properly, and suggestions for your writing style. Let's get started. Let's start with fonts. The best practice is to use simple sans serif fonts like Aptos, Arial, or Verdana. Avoid decorative or script fonts as they can be difficult to read, especially for users with dyslexia or visual impairments. Serif fonts can often cause a visual effect that makes multiple letters next to each other look like a different letter or garbled. For example, when the letters R and N are next to one another, some serif fonts can make them look like the letter M. In the word intern, for example, making it look like item. Font size is also critical. A minimum of 12-point font is recommended for body text within documents and emails, but 14-point is even better for accessibility. For presentations, aim for at least 24-point to maintain readability. Let's move to talking about how you should use space in your documents. Avoid walls of text by using at least a 1.15 line spacing and generous paragraph breaks. Proper spacing helps readers track text more easily, improving comprehension and reducing eye strain. Break up content with clear headings and bullet points. As we discussed in a previous Byte video, screen readers use headings to navigate documents, so make sure to use heading styles instead of just bolding text. Formatting dates and times correctly helps all users, including those using assistive technology. When writing out dates and times, you should write out dates in a full format, like March 15, 2025. Avoid abbreviating days and months, as screen readers may mispronounce shortened forms. Include AM or PM for clarification when using the 12-hour format. Use only AM or PM once at the end when it applies to all times listed. For example, the meeting is from 2:30 until 3:30 p.m. And avoid dashes, as screen readers often ignore dashes. Spell out words that describe the meaning instead. For example, the meeting is from 2:30 until 3:30 p.m. Another key to accessibility is using simple, clear language. Some best practices for writing in plain language include using common words and phrases instead of technical terms, using active voice whenever possible, keeping sentences short and to the point, avoiding unnecessary jargon, defining unfamiliar terms when you need to use them, and spelling out abbreviations and acronyms the first time they are used. Remember, the goal of learning these strategies is to make your content easy to understand the first time someone reads it. Now, let's take a quick look at how to apply these accessibility best practices in a document. Hello and welcome to another Bytes presentation. Today's presentation, we're going to talk about fonts, font sizes, and abbreviations when creating documents. For today's purposes, we're going to use this document that I have on my screen as our example. Now, when I look at this document, the first thing that I notice is the font that's being used. If we highlight any font or any word or paragraph or sentence, we can see the font that's being used. And here we're using Times New Roman. Times New Roman is a serif font. Serif fonts are the fonts that have the little flags connected to each letter. The concern about serif fonts is that sometimes when letters are connected to each other or paired next to each other, they can look like a different letter, which can change the meaning of the word for somebody reading it. For example, these two letters R and M here that I've got highlighted actually can look like an M. And here are some examples of words that have R and N next to each other. And when changed to an M, because that's how it is perceived, it changes the complete word and the meaning that is trying to be conveyed. So we're going to start by highlighting all the text on this page. I'm using a Mac, so I'm going to do Command A. If you're using a Windows machine, you would do Control A. And I'm simply going to choose a sans serif font. And I'm going to choose Aptos. So here we are with a sans serif font, and it's a little bit more readable. The next thing that I notice is the second line of the document that provides the date and time of this workshop. And in this line, we have a lot of abbreviations. We have AM and AM and a dash to indicate from and to. So from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. So let's break these down one at a time and start with days of the week. Whenever we use abbreviations like this, we're not guaranteed that a screen reader will actually pick up the full word. It will not necessarily say Friday. It might say Fry. And same with months of the year. Secondly, when we come here and look at the time, first of all, we don't need the time after each time frame if they are of the same time frame. So because these are both in the AM, we can actually delete the first AM. Next, when we have AM without periods, the screen reader might actually read that as the word am. So instead of saying 10 a.m., it would say 10 am. Finally, the dash here, the symbol in the middle, is ignored by screen readers. So whenever when we talk about dates, we want to actually write the word that we are meaning as that dash. So in this case, we mean 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. So finally, we're going to talk about these final zeros. If it starts at the top of the hour, we can actually delete those. And we can do the same at the end of the hour, or let's say it ends at 11:30, then we can add the colon and the rest of the time. Otherwise, we can simply click the 10 without adding the colon 00. So let's hear what some of this sounds like with a screen reader. Let's start with abbreviations. So I'm going to first have the screen reader read the differences in the months of the year. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Here are the difference months of the year. Abbreviated. Jan, February. Ma, APR. May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and Dec. Spelled out. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and December.
So notice that the month of the year wasn't always noted when it was written as an abbreviation. So it's always best to fill out the month of the year by typing it out completely. Next, let's listen to days of the week. 3, 2, 1.
Here are the difference days of the week. Abbreviated. Mon, Tuesday, Wed, Thursday, Friday, Sat, and Sun. Spelled out. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Again, notice that some days of the week, when abbreviated, it was able to recognize, and some it was not. So always best to be cautious and spell out the day of the week. Now, finally, the third thing we're going to hear is what happens when we use symbols between times. So the first thing you're going to hear is when we use symbols, and then it's going to go on to read what happens when we change those symbols to words. 3, 2, 1.
Hear the difference between times. Using dashes between times. Our class meets from 10:50 a.m. Monday, Thursday. Using words between times. Our class meets from 10 to 10:50 a.m. Monday through Thursday.
So notice again, once we change the symbol to words, the screen reader is able to be much more accurate and less confusing for the user. Moving on down this document, the next thing that I notice is some spacing concerns. For example, you'll notice that there are no spaces between this semicolon or colon, and this list. So we want to have some spacing, and it is best to do that. We can just highlight, and I like to go to layout, and in the layout we can actually choose some spacing, but notice it's only putting spacing here and not actually between the numbers, the list. So what we're going to do is actually come to this 3 dots here for more options, and we're going to choose paragraph options. When we choose paragraph options, we're going to tell it that we want potentially 6 points between each, but then what we want to do is make sure that this box right here, the don't add space between paragraphs of the same style, is unchecked. When we uncheck it, you will notice that now we have this nice space between the bullets. And if we want that to be the standard bullet type, we can highlight, and you'll notice that this list paragraph is a style, and we can actually scroll to that style, and just like we did in other Bytes programs, we can click and update to match style. So now any list style in the document is going to pick up that spacing. You'll see that it picked up that spacing here. You'll also notice that it picked up some bolding, and that was because some of the words in that list were bolded and some weren't. So we're going to just unbold, and we can go back and add those that bold later. That works also between paragraphs. For example, you'll notice that there's not a lot still of space between this paragraph and that. Again, we can just highlight the paragraph, and we can tell it that after each paragraph we want 12-point space after every paragraph. And then again, if we like that, we can right click and tell it that this is going to be our new normal font. So when we click that, it's going to now add a 12-point space after the paragraph. All right, so these are really important in regards to when you're creating documents, making sure that you have proper spacing. You can also change spacing between letters. There are some recommendations from accessibility experts that say that line height should be at least 1.5 times the font size. Spacing following paragraphs to at least 2 times the font size. Letter spacing should be 0.12 times the font size, and word spacing to at least 0.16 times the font size. Now, a lot of this can be done in this program online in Word. However, some of the trickier things like letter spacing between characters can only be done in the desktop version. And you can do that simply by clicking Editing and Open in Desktop and change the font. The default fonts spacing between characters is usually just fine. However, if you do want to be a little more picky and change those, feel free to go to the desktop version. All right, I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you at the next Bytes. As you just saw, small changes can make a big difference. By choosing clear fonts, proper spacing, and thoughtful formatting, you make your content more accessible for everyone. These aren't just good design choices, they're essential for inclusion. Thank you for joining this Accessibility Byte. And remember, accessibility is a journey, and every step you take makes a big impact.